Hello, and welcome to another Monday night stream. I almost said Sunday night, which is strange because I don't normally stream on a Sunday. Just making sure this is all set up. Looks like it. Okay, good. Switch to OBS. Yep, okay. So, this week I'll be continuing my director's commentary. This time on chapter 25 and 26. There's some interesting things to talk about with these ones. No, I'm looking forward to it, but since this one works best with people here, I'm going to give a few guys sort of 10 minutes to show up and get comfortable before we get started. So I hope everyone's doing well. Yeah, and kind of hard to know what to say at the moment. Looking forward to going through this. Star Wars fans animations, hello and welcome. Always good to see you here. Robbie Jordan, thank you, that's very kind of you. Making these, well, this particular chapter 25, which is obviously paused at the moment. I finished this quite a while ago, though I did go back and render it again just before release, because I finished this much earlier in the year and I discovered new things about how Omniverse works, so it made sense to go back and change a couple of things, just make it look a little bit better than it did before. This probably won't be quite as long as my usual streams, because I'm off to go and see the creator tomorrow. It's my birthday this week, so I'm going to go and see that. This is one of my favourite scenes in the book. I love the Nogri arc. Yeah, it was fun to do. It's so different, and I kind of wanted to make it kind of scary. Now you can't see the thumbnail for this one, but I looked at the scene in Alien 3 when Ripley's got the alien right up against her face. That was the inspiration for the thumbnail. You know, when she's kind of turned away and it's there, and that's what I used. But there's the Nogri against Leia's face. How long does it take to make a chapter? I know nothing about this kind of stuff. It depends on the complexity of the chapter. Something that's mostly conversations is a lot easier to do than some of the more complex action scenes. So something like chapter 31 is a huge undertaking with everything that happens in it, so I've already started on that. Even though I don't have all of the recordings, there are elements of that are going to be very time consuming, so I've got started on that now, even though I can't finish it. Scarlet Oil, it's so good to see you. Hope you're doing well. And Sherry, also good to see you. I'm going to be continuing my director's commentary. Chapter 25 and 26, but I'm going to give people another sort of 5 minutes or so to join us. Yeah. So just trying to think how. Yeah. So I'm getting some wood, and I'll be here watching it all. That's quite a coincidence, given that this chapter takes place on Kashyyyk, which is obviously entirely forest. When you look at the village here, it's entirely built out of wood. I had a lot of fun with this because I looked at how Kashyyyk looked in the Knights of the Old Republic video game, and obviously I looked at it in Revenge of the Sith. Now in the book, it describes the village as being very high up in the trees, so I wanted to reflect that. So obviously in Revenge of the Sith, the villages that we see are much closer to the surface, and that doesn't really work here. So the trees are massively tall. So when I came to do this, I thought, yeah, I need to make this village very high up, and it's night time. And I thought, well, if I make it misty, that will kind of give it a kind of spooky atmosphere. Because the goal here is to make the Nogu very scary, and I mean, I didn't want to go over the top. It's still important to capture the tone of the original trilogy, or all the movies, really. They can be scary, but they can't be horrific. So even though I talked about earlier using Alien 3 as the thumbnail reference, I would never make it as scary as the Alien movies, because that's not what Star Wars is. Yeah, and I do know about the zombie books, but those are an exception. Alright, just hydrating there with some water. Alright, give another 2 minutes, because I did start a minute late. Oh, that's tinkering with my Kindle. Missed the usual start time. Scary Star Wars is really cool. I hope this is just the right amount of scary. To to keep the tone right, but still be scary. Because obviously there are elements in the movies that are scary, like Luke going to the cave on Dagobah. That was always quite a dark and spooky moment. I'm having Skeleton Crew as a horror show. I think they took inspiration there for that show from the Goonies and movies like that, which obviously does have some scary elements to it too, but it's kind of that kind of feel from what they've said. But I have noticed they've not really said anything about it. We haven't even excuse me, let me get some water here. I had a cookie just now, and I obviously still got some crumbs stuck in my throat somewhere. Let me try that again. So I've noticed they haven't actually done much to promote Skeleton Crew, so we haven't even had a teaser trailer. So I'm thinking maybe the state of the galaxy at the end of Ahsoka is going to be reflected in Skeleton Crew, because it does take place around the same time. And obviously they don't want to spoil that. But since the show's coming this year, in theory, I imagine we'll get something once Ahsoka finishes. Do you have any plans to cosplay for this Halloween? Probably not. Trick-or-treating, answering the door when people come trick-or-treating is fun, But most of the costumes I have are either not anything the kids would recognise, so there's no point doing it, or would take a long time to get into. I could do Thrawn. I know kids who've been watching Ahsoka would get it, but it does take up quite some time to paint myself up. So, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do anything, but I may change my mind. How about you? Are you going to cosplay for Halloween? The galaxy is going to crash after Ahsoka. Yeah. So, I don't think we're going to see the beginning of the... I don't think we're going to see the whole war, obviously, because you can't fit that into one episode, but I do think we're going to... Thrawn's going to be back in the main galaxy, and I suspect we'll be seeing some parts of that in Skeleton Crew somehow. How that comes about, I don't know, but we'll see. I'm doing Kayati Monday. Right, I think I should get started. It's been about 10 minutes, so we'll get started on chapter 25. Now, I haven't adjusted the audio settings from last week, so they should be right. But if you can't hear me talking over the sound of the video, do let me know and I will adjust the video accordingly. So, let's get started. Yeah, let's make it short. Yep. Okay. Can you hear the video as well, or? Right. Yes, we've got Leia asleep, waking up. So this motion capture is fun to do because the motion capture suit doesn't work if I'm laying down, so I had to stand up, pretending to be laying down, and do a flip, and then adjusted the rotation actually in the software.
Come on, there may be more of them.
It was very awkward, and I did not throw myself across the room there. I used some stock animations for that.
We'll need some rope.
I thought it was important here to reflect that looking down is there's nothing down there. Well, there is, but it's so far away you can't see it. Now for the climbing on the trees, I didn't do that obviously either because I can't climb like that. But I found some crawling animations that worked really well, and I just rotated them to be upside down. Now this lightsaber drop that's coming up, this is it. I had to do this so many times because it kept missing the speeder. And it takes about 20 minutes each time it renders, and I don't know if it's going to hit until it's rendered. And I think I had to do it about 8 times before I got it right. But it was fun. I kind of wish I could have done more with it, but there's only so much you can do. In that kind of situation. I had him sitting there, just kind of looking down. That was actually me sniffing. I just did that in the microphone a few times, so I got something I was happy with. They did make me sneeze afterwards as well. So, so there's a recording of that somewhere as well. Obviously, I cut that out for this. I have to admit, making the Wookiee cell was quite challenging because it had to be made of wood, but also look secure.
You said he brought you hope. How? What battle?
I thought this had to be done as a flashback because obviously when the book was written, the Clone Wars was just a vague comment. But now we've seen the ships that were involved. And I know that Timothy Zahn likes the prequels and he likes the Clone Wars animation, so he would have put this in if he had that knowledge when he wrote it.
Whatever happened must have been an accident.
Obviously later on, I think it's in Last Command, we get to see more of that, what happened. Maybe in Dark Force Rising, I can't remember. One of the next two books. And so I get to do this again, but in greater detail.
You must tell me the location of your world.
But it felt really good to put some Clone Wars stuff in there. A nice little surprise. I love the Battle I want to go in the Republic comics. Yes! That's what I looked back at as well. I did change the ships that we used because it was a little bit easier that way.
I trust your people honorable. I trust them to grant me a hearing. Consider my
I should have to
of those whose
go
counsel
back and read that again
then if
before I do the extended version of the battle later on.
I will come along. Will you?
But that's not for this book, so I don't have to worry about it.
Farewell.
But once the idea hit, I just really had to do that flashback. Flippy, hello and welcome. Scott, oh, thank you.
I can't say I'm really happy with it either, but we can't dodge them forever. If we have even a chance of getting them out from Imperial control, we'll try.
Or should I say general animation? Alright, so that was 25. And obviously the post image, the image there at the end had to be them climbing under the trees. Does that mean you plan to do books 2 and 3 as well? I haven't really thought too much about it yet because I need to finish this one. I'd have to read the books again and write the script, so it's to do anything like that. But it'd be a shame not to. I mean, there's so many good moments, but really I'm just focusing on finishing the Empire yet. But occasionally I get thoughts of what would I do later on in the story. Is the mouth and face motion capture? It is not. There is an option for that in iClone. And you have to buy a plugin, which is very expensive. But there's a free trial version, and I tried it. And the idea is you set up a webcam, and it will record your facial animation and animate the characters' faces. But when I tried the free trial, it wasn't as good as I really wanted it to be. It was actually easier to animate. It's quicker and easier to animate the faces manually or using stock facial animation, which is a pack I bought a while ago, which is very good, than it was to do the motion capture for the face. 'Cause it just, I don't know, it's just kind of twitchy and it didn't look right. Do you make the mocap through mocap suit or AI? I use a mocap suit for the actual body animation, and I've got a motion capture suit. It's a Perception Neuron 1, which is very old and not in the best of condition anymore because I've used it so much. So at some point that's going to need to be replaced, which I'm not looking forward to because it's very expensive now. I don't use AI for anything in this project though. There's no AI voices, there's no AI animation, there's no AI art, because I like real stuff. I like working with real people. So, because all the voices, all the people do the voices, they're the actors. So they're either friends I already knew or the people I've become friends with working on this. I like that sort of social aspect to it. And I like creating the art and everything as well. So, I don't use AI for anything. Oh, and the motion capture is doing that as well. That's fun. Getting to running around my living room pretending to be in Star Wars. And the other thing I don't do is the stunt work, like you saw in this chapter when the Nogri gets thrown across the room. I used a stock animation that I already had. For that one. Let's see. Have a look at the chat. Unreal Engine has something like for metahumans with a phone app called LiveLink Face. That's exactly what iClone has as well. There's if I had an iPhone, I could do it that way as well. But I don't have an iPhone. I prefer Android, which doesn't work with the facial motion capture. It's something to do with the depth sensor. Hi Darth Angelus, what's the best way to reach you? I have a question about Heir to the Empire. I would suggest you send me a DM on Twitter. Just bear with me a second. Send me a DM there. Vixer, good morning. I guess it's morning here too. It's nearly midnight. Have you been watching Ahsoka? Yes, I have. Don't you think Shin Hati has Mara Jade's story? It's too early to tell. Possibly. I think there was kind of an expectation that Ahsoka was going to be an adaptation of Heir to the Empire. And obviously Thrawn's going to reach the main galaxy at the end of the show and start his campaign there. But that campaign is for future shows. It's not going to be part of this. So I don't think it's going to be an exact copy of the Thrawn trilogy, other than Thrawn takes control of the Empire and embarks on a campaign to whatever his objective is going to be. But if it wasn't a direct adaptation of the Thrawn trilogy, Ahsoka would be Chapter 0 because it takes place before he's back in command. So that would apply to Shin as well. So if she does make it back, and if she is going to have some similarities to Mara Jade, we're not at that point in the story yet. British as well. Oh, okay. Nice to meet another British person here on the who's staying up past midnight for this stream. Alright, we're going to go on to chapter 26. So let me load it up. Now, when I tried this last week, it crashed. So if that happens again, the screen will go blank and then I'll fix it. But hopefully not. Drax's commentary videos are some of my favourite live streams. Well, that's good to know. I always like to do 2 chapters at once, and it's been a while since I've been able to have 2 chapters to go through. And of course, with the recent batch of episodes I've released. Well, here we are. Alright, I'm switching over to 26. Let's see what happens.